Siblings of Psychopaths, What Was Your Experience? Viewers Edition. Story 1. My brother had some rough times growing up because our father was a bit emotionally damaged from, being a refugee and nearly being murdered as a toddler. I did try to shield him, but I'm A, autistic myself, and B, was a kid at the time. So fast forward, my brother has gotten this very young woman, as in just 18, pregnant, and she says her roommate is abusive. So I helped him get her out of there to move into my mom's house with me. I was saving up for another master's. But weirdly, they don't allow me into her apartment. I thought it was weird at the time, but figured her ex-roomie was just incredibly toxic. Now I think they were afraid that if I had a conversation with the ex-roomie, it would be a lie. Then under the drive back, she started talking about how we needed to rehome our cats because she doesn't like cats. Also note, this woman likes to have hamsters, gerbils, guinea pigs, but they always mysteriously die off super fast. I gently tell her we're not rehoming our cats and carry on. A few weeks or a month into all this, I get a call from my mom that this woman is accusing me of doing the same things she accused her ex-roomie of doing, for example, mistreating her pets and stealing her food. Note, she was throwing my food in the garbage and wouldn't allow me to use the kitchen. She also wanted me to pay rent to her, not my mom, for living in my mom's house, and as my brother had decided to marry her, wanted to wear my mom's wedding dress. Also note, my mom made the point of saying that my brother was doing this out of a sense of responsibility for getting her pregnant and definitely did not love her. My mom did not approve but loved my brother and wanted him to make his own choices. I suspect the choice wasn't actually his. None of this worked, so they didn't invite my mom or me to their wedding. My new sister-in-law starts sending me super abusive emails accusing me of all manner of nonsense, and my brother starts saying that I'm stealing money from the family to fund my lifestyle. I took out loans, got scholarships, worked part-time jobs, budgeted to finance my education, and while my mom was supportive and did help where she could, no, I didn't con my family. I did finally confront him on this when he accused me of conning our father into paying for my doctorate. As I said, I got all the funds together to pay for my doctorate, and there actually was a moment where I completed early, and the school tried to get extra tuition out of me, so when my brother told me my father had been paying the school while they were also taking payment from me, I just about accidentally called his bluff because I thought the school was double dipping. No, turns out my brother, probably at the behest of his wife, was just trying to make me feel guilty about earning advanced degrees. I go away for school, and immediately upon landing and calling my mom, she tells me that my sister-in-law has threatened to cut my mom off from my brother and their children if my mother doesn't disown me and stop speaking to me, full stop. So we would have to conduct our mother-daughter relationship in secret. My sister-in-law would drop in on my mother and check her mail to try and enforce this ban on my mom talking to me. I went to a family wedding, and because my mom hadn't been able to send me gifts, etc. for years, she secretly paid for my and my partner's room, and we met with her and my grandmother in secret. Later, my mother gets terminal cancer and passes away. I'm allowed to come home to see her, but my awful sister-in-law is openly ecstatic that my mom is dying and guilts my brother for spending time with her in her last days and hours. Later, they accused me of setting up traps for their children. I had left a box of school supplies for the kids out. And for the memorial, she tries to demand a special performance or something just for her and her kids. It was massively inappropriate, so while I did let her participate, I didn't do what she wanted me to do, and so, of course, she screams at me, my brother screams at me, and about a month afterwards, I get another abusive, nasty email from her where she explains that I'm a bad daughter and didn't deserve my mom's love. Supposedly, I wasn't inclusive enough of her and made the funeral all about me. I mean, Mom's friends thought it was a great goodbye, and they had less participation than she did, so it was a cool story. I think it was because my mom was really supportive of me singing, and so I sang 2 songs she really loved. One was a song she would always request I sing for her, and another was a song she requested for her wedding. At the service, and chose music for everyone else that matched Mom's theme and that I knew she would like or did like. But the sister-in-law bills herself as a professional musician and was angry that I had sight-read the second song initially and was ready to perform it within a month because she can't read music. So of course, anyone with more technical skill than her is automatically very bad, no good, regardless of the purpose. Also, I just remembered this one. While my mom was dying, she asked me to sing an entirely different song for her. So my sister-in-law decides she's going to accompany me on the accordion. I initially agreed and let her get some practice time with the music because I figured she's a professional and she'll be able to do it. She could not. It was a disaster. She couldn't manage it at tempo, and given that it was a very light waltz with fast vocal runs, it sounds terrible. I gave her a few chances to get up to speed, but she just couldn't, so finally I told her thanks for trying, but just let me sing this a cappella. Temper tantrum ensues. And remember, my mother had made a deathbed request to hear me sing this song. During all this, I was trying to repair my relationship with my brother, but he would not answer my emails, some of his messages didn't sound like him, and would never agree to a phone call. We could do FaceTime/Skype, and so I did, until I found out that the reason for this is she was seated just off camera supervising. She was afraid that if I spoke to my brother privately, I might be able to reverse her brainwashing. Yada yada, she tried to steal my inheritance, continually fat shames me. She is considerably heavier than I am and knows I suffer from anorexia, as in, while we were living under the same roof, most of my clothes were size 0, and she's not obese. I don't think she's ever been under a size 12. Was at least verbally abusive to my mom, couldn't keep pets including a dog alive, told my mom I deserved to be homeless, and told me I'm probably infertile and far too old to have kids. So I've made the decision to give up on her, and while I am terrified for my niece and nephew and I suspect my brother is a battered husband, I've decided to cut them off until he divorces her or the kids grow up, realize their mother is a malignant narcissist, and decide to get out of there. My partner and I are going to have kids and get married, but I sadly can't invite my brother or his kids or even tell them about their cousins because I genuinely do think that his awful wife will try to hurt my children or my partner's family if she's ever given knowledge of them/is in contact with them. It's really sad, but I don't think she can ever get better. I think she will always be like this, and it's just heartbreaking in all its iterations. I did actually go into the thread to see if it was my brother, and no, I don't think it is. I do hope that guy is safe. First, thank you so much for sharing your story, and I'm really sorry that you've had to deal with that. I've had someone like this in my family, but it was a little more distant relative, and so it didn't personally affect me as much, but I did see how hard it was on so many family members. And yeah, it sounds like this person has some major problems and really needs some therapy, and is putting a lot of the rest of your family through hell, and that sucks so bad. And I'll just say, I think that you made the right call just cutting them off. There's only so much you can do. You can't force your brother to see what kind of person she is. He has to do some of the work himself, and he has to know what other people think, like he can't be that oblivious to it. So yeah, I think you made the right call as much as it hurts and sucks, and I hope one day he's able to break away and you can repair that relationship. Story 2. I was abused and bullied by my own bio mother, raised by my grandparents, and youngest brother, mom's golden child, in almost every way imaginable except for S. Nothing was ever their fault, and people blaming them were nuts and conspiring against them. If they insulted us, it's because we asked for it. But if we retaliated, we were the evil ones making their lives hell. If our youngest brother stole things from us, Mom would defend him with, "He's not stealing it, you'll get it back," or "He's not even going to play with it that long," or outright not even say a word about it. My Pokemon Sapphire game went missing for over half a year once, and when I found it, it turned out my little brother had it the entire time, and my mom knew but didn't care, then still tried to justify why she wanted to take it away from me again. They would call us some of the most horrible things out there, which I took the most impact from. And I'm taking things no mom should say to her own kids and things no child should ever be heard saying, then she'd justify it by saying the usual lazy parent excuse of, "He's a kid, he doesn't know any better," or "He doesn't even know what it means, so let him say it." But if we returned the insults, she'd immediately play victim, something she constantly did, and say how the words hurt her. She was also one of your typical reborn Christian hypocrites, so she'd often preach her holier-than-thou garbage and then turn right around and do the exact opposite of what she preached. All this while the crazy bee still had the audacity to get peed at the world and scream, "Nobody loves my baby," while acting like she wasn't the reason behind it. This doesn't even scratch the surface because there's the amount of people she's alienated because of her god-awful attitude towards others. Family outside of her own mother don't talk to her or even want to stay in touch. Whatever friends she had no longer talk to her since she outright cut many of them out, since some of them had the nerve to raise their voice at her precious baby. And no, it wasn't because of discipline. One of them just shouted at them to stop playing in the middle of the street when a car was approaching. And none of her kids want anything to do with her from all the abuse. The only one who does is our youngest brother, and even he can't stand her anymore, but tolerates it because he wants to be a leech. Sorry this is so long, but it's something I needed to vent. I've cut my mom out of my life for 2 years now, and I feel so much better. The crap I had to deal with still affects me, but no longer dealing with her has been the best decision of my life. No apologizing for length. It was the length that it needs to be, and I'm glad that you shared it. And I think this is also an important lesson for some people struggling with, parents or stuff like this. And it's okay to cut those people out of your life. You don't owe family that much. If you can try and make amends and make things work, that's great. But if they are literally damaging to your mental and or physical health, you have every right to just cut them out of your life because it's going to be what's best for you. And if that, bridge is going to get repaired, they're going to have to be the ones to start to do the work. Story 3. My whole family seems to have some screws missing. Have a narcissist sister myself and have been going through everything you can imagine facing psychological abuse. She was so effing close to get me to end myself after she managed it to get me thrown out of the family a third time, making everyone think I'm the problem, trying that with my friends as well. Telling everyone in town I would have mental problems and massively taking drugs, which she did, because a friend was sure that after I tried to pull away from the family after everything she/they did, mostly for the sake of attention. My other sister went along because she played us against each other until she finally realized what was happening. We're good again, but we left for our own health. Our parents weren't the best. We never had any kind of emotional support at all. They didn't know how I thought. I was never good enough. I had to care for my sisters way too young, and my mother was an emotionally insecure and weak person. She took me as her shoulder to cry about her problems and how she's so lost with our father and doesn't know how to pay the bills and what to do. She even wanted me to talk with my sisters about things she should have talked with us about, like not to take drugs and that sort of stuff. And oh my, it was a lot, because as my end sister started her career as an a-hole, she was pretty bad at lying and getting herself out of trouble she made. My parents were both alcoholics until we got them out there way too late. My dad used to scream us into our rooms once he got home because we were yelling at each other because someone had been a jerk, and instead of listening to us, he'd explode. 3 girls about the same age. We had an argument constantly, everywhere, and he used to freak out every time and everywhere. Once I'd grown the nuts to scream right back. Got me into a breakdown and made him kind of realize what he did. Felt like I raised myself and made me and my sisters into a bunch of mental issues, to make it short. I know they, especially her, struggle for themselves, and I'm trying to forgive especially my narcissist sister for my own peace, but I just can't. Neither can my other sister, because I also know that she just cares for her effing self and how she can benefit from anything. It's always about her, it's never her fault, and she knows everything. Once she can't use someone anymore, she dumps them. And I believed her when we were younger. How often I talked with her and told her she was right while she was completely swirling everything around, playing the cry card, but not because she was hurt, but because she wanted attention from me as the wrong mother figure. But I never saw her cry about a relationship or something, well, how she was the victim after all. It kills me inside not to see my nephew and knowing how she treats him and our parents where she lives, but I can't stand her anymore. I'm in therapy myself because who would have guessed I'm effed inside, but I'm doing a lot better and can say without any doubt that my whole effing family is a toxic super cocktail. I'm a fighter, and I made the right decision when I left. I encourage everyone to do so in that case. It is not a weakness. Story 4. Yeah, I'm fairly certain that my younger sister is a narcissist and/or sociopath. She's not diagnosed, but she has the signs from what I've heard from these stories. She's very emotionally abusive towards me in particular, and physically abusive if she gets worked up enough, and I don't get away fast enough. She's stolen from me, threatened to kill me, and said other things like she'd hoped I'd die, etc. She also doesn't treat her dog very well. I've noticed she likes them when they're puppies, but once they get older, she just loses interest in them. It's sad because her current dog is such a sweet girl and deserves better. My sister is only 16 and she already has a felony. She went to a graveyard and she and her friends were knocking over headstones. Of course, nothing is ever her fault, and it's also blaming others. I remember one time I was staying with my dad and her. I live with my mom because I can't handle being around her anymore. I didn't do the dishes and she started calling me lazy and saying how I never do anything, and when her dog gets into the trash, I'm to blame because I wasn't watching her dog. I'm fairly certain something isn't mentally right with my dad either, as he'll say some things that he doesn't mean, but it still hurts. I don't remember what had been said, but something upset me and I went to my room and slammed the door. The door was locked, but my sister broke the door open so she could yell at me for slamming the door. My dad is usually very nice, but he says odd things sometimes. One time around Christmas, he said I'd ruined Christmas, and when I got upset by this and went to my room, he tried to say that he didn't mean it and he was just joking. It doesn't matter if you're joking or not, that's not something you say to anyone. My mom probably has some issues as well, mostly when it comes to her romantic relationships because she can't seem to keep a guy very long or doesn't pick them very well. I'm not sure, I'm still figuring her out, but besides that, Mom is a good parent that cares for me. My sister is getting help and she does seem to be doing better, but she's still got some anger issues and whatnot. So I don't know from the description if I would say that your sister's a sociopath, though I think in the original video we kind of discussed the fact that the term sociopath, people throw it around for just about anything. But it does sound like she has some issues, and I'm glad that she's getting help and doing better. But, hopefully she sticks with it. Hopefully she continues to get better, because it sounds like the crap that she was doing was pretty bad. And if she's not going to put in the work to be better, then you have every right to keep your distance. Story 5. I had a friend who was overweight, important point, and into music/cinema, very outspoken, but bullied by others for being a geek/weeb, and for his body, also for telling everything as it is. He never could be blamed because he was only telling the truth. Well, one Saturday when I went with my mom to do groceries, I met him in the shop. We started speaking about an upcoming test. My mom had went around the corner while we talked. That's when his very fit and well-dressed mom came to him and yelled, "For F's sake, move it, you fat bastard. God, what a ball of grease I got as a son. Hurry up or go die in a ditch, Butterball." I was absolutely baffled and in shock while he dropped his head, lost his smile, and muttered a tiny bye while he went after her. My mom didn't hear her exactly what he had said, just heard her yell something. I told her and she was livid. His dad and mom got divorced a year later. He got diagnosed with a thyroid problem that blocked his growth and made him gain weight while his mom had starved him every day. I invited him to a concert for one of our favorite bands just after the divorce. We went and had a blast. He later told me he had never been invited anywhere before. His dad got full custody, made him go through surgery, and he had a major growth spurt and made him lose a lot of weight. He got back the joyful personality he had around me and became much more caring towards others' feelings since he wasn't mimicking his mom to please her anymore. Story 6. I'm not certain of my theory, but I think my 5-year-old sister is a sociopath. She's pretty narcissistic and genuinely believes she is a princess. She constantly demands things and pushes us around, but acts like a sweet little angel when we have visitors or are in public. She deliberately gets people mad so that she can manipulate them into giving her what she wants while they are in an unstable mindset, and has memorized what makes each of us mad. My brother is pretty hard to push around, so she figured out one of the only things that makes him mad is pain. So she hits him constantly. And whenever an instance where she could get in trouble happens, she plays the victim. She's not great at it, but she's already good at manipulation, and I imagine she will be better at playing the victim as she gets older. Once, she made our sensitive sister upset before she had preschool and lied to everyone who would ask her, saying, "The dog upset her. We do not have a dog." Another time, she threw a temper tantrum because we didn't go down the street she wanted while driving and demanded that we turn the car around. She also sulks sometimes when she doesn't get what she wants, and my parents won't do anything about it. They won't take her to an expert to figure this out. They won't punish her when she does something horrible. They won't even try a different parenting tactic from the one that they've been using on their first three, which is be nice to her and hope she turns out right. And that's all the evidence I've gathered over the years of living with her. I'd like to hear an expert's opinion on the matter. I'm not trying to make my parents look bad, as they are truly great parents, so please don't hate on them. Thanks for listening to me rant about my youngest sister. Story 7. About a month ago, I had to give my family restraining orders and orders of protection for them to get the hint. There's no evidence left from the abuse that I went through when I was a child, and the only circumstantial evidence is being no contact from most of my family for a decade has allowed me to live a relatively normal life. My father is dying, that is, if he isn't already, and what spurred this is my brother getting someone else to tell me about his recent heart attack. I have an order of protection against her also because I already told her about everything, so she was very out of line for telling me I should make up with my brother, who continues to tell the rest of my family about what I'm up to. Ironically, part of the problem is they call me a stalker, amongst other horrible things, with no evidence because I don't do anything they say about me. They just try to distract people so they don't realize how messed up they are. It isn't working anymore. If someone gets a court order on someone, probably would be the last thing that ever happens to them. When the issuer was the alleged crazy one, there's a lot more to the story than was being fed to them.
I just want to say, good for you. It cannot have been easy to take that step to legally put up that order. And I'm sure that you've gotten pushback from some people, because there are always some people, when it comes to setting hard boundaries like that with family, they'll be like, "Oh, but they're family. Oh, you still love them though, this and that." And sure, that may be true, but setting boundaries like that is important, especially with the kind of abuse and stuff that you went through. And so I think what you did is brave. And I think other folks out there, if this is something that you're like, "Oh, I wish I could do that, but they're family." No, you can. You can with family. And if you need to, you should.
Story 8. My son's mother is this way, mostly by gaslighting. She had me so effed up at one point, I was drinking heavily just to deal with it. The day I confronted her was the day that I no longer felt the need to cope with drinking. I had to go through hell over the past few years, but life has gotten so much better, and she has finally figured out that not only does she no longer have any power over me, but she is making herself look worse and worse the more she tries to make me look like a bad parent. Story 9. Growing up, my father was a major narcissist, and the rest of my family stood up for him. I was the youngest and the only one who could see the terrible behavior, yet I just couldn't do anything about it. I was a major goody two-shoes growing up. I'm now 18, and I think pushing so hard against their behaviors started making them realize what was wrong. My mother understands what's up with my father, but my sister had a few too many terrible relationships and ended up worse off than my father. He's actually doing pretty well now, while she's the major narcissist. Things may not be perfect, but I'm glad I was able to make an impact, hoping I can help my sister now. Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.